Look at this man. He's 256 years old. It is hard to believe, but he lived in for centuries. There are plenty of such long livers in our history. The truth about many, in a series of complete lack of documentary evidence, we simply do not recognize. But despite this, the ancient texts of many cultures mention people with incredible longevity. Some say it's just a translation error, others suggest it was. Is it really possible for a person to live beyond the generally accepted age? And if so, how is it possible? Let's figure it out. It is commonly believed that the further into the past we plunge, the shorter life expectancy among people we will find there, and even in modern textbooks, it is clearly demonstrated that people lived on average 30 years, and this age for them was solid. But at the same time, there are many stories about legendary elders who lived much longer than the allotted time. After all, even Alexander Sergeyevich Pushkin himself, in his memoirs, told about a meeting with a 160-year-old Cossack. This Cossack perfectly remembered Stepan Razin and everything that happened a long time ago, one way or another. Such evidence is of interest to historians who wonder how it is possible. Is the life expectancy so quickly decreased, and where did those 300 years old elders go? Today, we will talk about people whose age just does not fit into the human framework. We will look at the long livers, look at detailed photos, and analyze their secrets. Why someone managed to live more than 300 years. Well, and at the end of the video, we will conclude why in our days, so sharply reduced people long livers who are not able to live more than 100 years, or still can. Let's find out. Age has always been a barrier to man. Year after year, in the past and to this day, the richest people in the world spend fortunes for the sake of one thing, to find the elixir of eternal youth. One of the greatest mysteries of our history is the different life expectancy of people of the past. Many sacred sources speak of this, and indeed, is men capable of living more than 90 years like Adam or Seth? If we take the Bible and look at the life expectancy of the first humans, we get incomprehensible and logically improbable figures. Adam, the progenitor of mankind created by God, lived 930 years. Noah lived 950 years. And all these people, according to history, were born before the flood. Moreover, according to books, in pre-flood times people differed not only on duration of life, but also on height. One of researchers calculated the height of Goliath, mentioned in the Bible. It turned out about 3 meters. By the way, not so tall. Even today, some people reach to meters and 70 centimeters. True, unlike the ancient long livers, they die after barely reaching the age of 30, or even earlier. Mentions of people who lived 900 years and more, there are not only in the Bible. Ancient texts from a wide variety of cultures tell of elders whose age seems quite impossible to modern man. For example, the period of reign of kings in the city of Eridu is characterized by the following figures. Elam ruled for 28 years, Elgar 36 years. On the other hand, in nature there are many examples of organisms over which age has no power. In fact, the life expectancy of mountains, rocks and rivers is measured in millions of years, and it cannot be said that nothing happens to them during this huge period of time. And all this, from trees and fungi to mammals like the famous naked diggers, who live 10 times longer than their rodent relatives. However, legends about people who have lived 130, 180 to 150 and more years also exist, and almost in every culture. Moreover, many of the legendary long livers of the past were officially recognized at the state level. One of the Russian magazines of the early 20th century told about a long-lived man who was more than 200 years old at that time. An elderly man went to a hospital in Tomsk, and the doctors asked how old he was. The patient had a metric certificate and other documents confirming his age. Among them was a passport issued to him in 1763. The elder said that he saw in his face Peter the Great, Catherine the Great. The long-lived man himself was by that time very weak, but his mental abilities did not suffer. It is true that most of the historical events preserved the memory of the wise man, because neither papyrus nor birch bark with writings could not survive the fires that accompanied numerous wars. All knowledge was destroyed, and knowledge remained only in the heads of the sages, for which they were commanded to be destroyed. It was believed that to die before the age of 100 was not a natural death, but a violent death or death by disease. There were indeed elders in the time of Peter I, and they lived for 300, 400 and even 500 years. But why? There are no documents about these elders' long livers, and it seems to me all simple. The brightest and not entered into history could simply destroy or to remove much more from other eyes. In fact, how it is possible to change the general idea of people that the person can live not one and not 2 centuries, and much more. If today's modern man goes to the gym to keep himself in shape, in those times the ancestors led a healthy lifestyle, being in constant communication with nature. Speaking of herbalists and herbalists, a legendary long-lived man passed away in China, which many still consider the only person in for centuries. But his story is also shrouded in great mystery. Li Qingyan allegedly came into the world in 1677. According to him, he spent most of his life in the mountains, collecting medicinal herbs and practicing Qigong. By the age of 10 he had already traveled to Tibet. There he learned herbal medicine from local doctors. According to documents, the biography of Qingyan can be traced quite well. At least in the archives found data that the imperial government congratulated the eternal herbalist with a 100th, 150th and 200th birthday. And in 1927, the only known photo of Li was taken, with a healing root in his hands. The herbalist died either in 1920 or 33 years later. The exact date of death was never established in the Usur. The most famous super long livers were representatives of Azerbaijan, mountain peoples. In this republic in the middle of the X century there were several record breakers whose age exceeded the officially accepted 1001 years. However, the problem with these mountain elders is exactly the same as with other incredibly old people. There is no exact documentary evidence of their age. Mahmud Beggar from the high mountain village of Pirasur allegedly lived 152 years. He was born in 1808 and died in 1960, and in 1956 a postage stamp was even issued in honor of the 148-year-old collective farmer. He became an international celebrity, the hero of press articles and TV programs, but there was no firm documentation of his age. To this day, many people in the Caucasus also claim to be 170 years old, but cannot produce documents to prove it. Some sources write, these long-lived people led a modest lifestyle, engaging in hard physical labor or sports, often in the air, from young to old age. They ate simple food and actively participated in the affairs of the family. This, it seems to me, is the whole secret of longevity. The right diet is the right way of life. The unpretentious diet of our ancestors included traditional soups and porridge, which were cooked in a Russian oven. Without coming into direct contact with an open fire, food was boiled, stewed, baked and fried with the preservation of all the useful properties. The absence of refrigerators allowed cooking in moderate portions that were eaten in one sitting, so people consumed fresh food every day. It turns out that almost all long livers in the world follow the same rules without even realizing it. Most of them live in mountain villages. The main dish in their diet is barley porridge. They all have large families, almost all of them were farmers, working on the land or herding sheep. The shepherds walk a lot in the mountains, and they eat their home-cooked food, cheese, milk, and bread. But why are there no documentary sources on the age of these long-lived people? And everything is simple. People live in nature, in the forests, in quiet and mountainous areas. They live in a different paradigm of things. They have no passports, no documents, and many of them do not even know their age. They simply do not consider it.